Our next story is about a man at another local radio station, and with all the depressing news of this day, it is about time we had something a little brighter to report. Barbara Rogers has it too in this story of a human being who refuses to let disability interfere with life.
Paul Stebbins is an engineer at radio station KNBR. In his job, he has a number of buttons to push, meters to read, labels to scan, all functions for which sight is important. Yet Paul Stebbins, age 30, has been blind all of his life. There are not many blind people in jobs like Paul's. In fact, few of the sightless ever have the opportunity to learn how to do what Paul does. Paul was fortunate in that he got his experience in a family-owned business. But when he tried to parlay that experience into a job, he ran into nothing but opposition.
Oftentimes, employers close their eyes and they would say, well, I can't run a console with my eyes closed, or I can't operate a transmitter, so therefore, you can't do the job. My first reaction was one of disappointment, but when it happened 50, 60, 70, or even 100 times to me, then I became quite frustrated. And yes, I was angry because I didn't know where to go or to who to turn.
Paul did find someone to turn to, though. He met KNBR's manager of technical operations, William Newbrough.
Quite honestly, I had some trepidation about, how is this going to work?
But Newbrough says his trepidation disappeared after he talked with Paul for a couple of hours and realized how qualified he is for the job.
I just knew that there was a person who had the qualifications that we were looking for, and we weren't hiring a blind engineer. We were hiring an engineer who just happened to be blind.
Now, with the assistance of Paul's mother, who labeled the station's 3,000-plus audio cardio, and station employees who helped install devices that allowed Paul to hear what others would see, Paul, by everyone's account, is doing a terrific job.
We've all really gained by it. It's been a wonderful experience.
And that's the point Paul Stebbins has been trying to make all of his life, that those who have to live with less can often teach others who have it all how to appreciate it more. In San Francisco, Barbara Rogers, Channel 5, Eyewitness News.
Man, you certainly have to admire. You have to admire the radio station just a little bit, too.
Suzanne, being born with a disability does not have to mean spending your life in an institution, and tonight Channel 7 Cheryl Jennings has a case in point, a blind man who keeps a major radio station on the air.
It's hard enough to imagine trying to operate an elaborate console like this in a major market radio station, but now close your eyes and imagine trying to do it blind. 33-year-old engineer Paul Stebbins has been completely blind since birth, and yet he is working at the controls for one of San Francisco's largest radio stations, KNBR. He works with air personalities like Carter B. Smith and C.J. Bronson.
Got a 560 and a 115 with a tag on the second, please. Maybe we ought to do a little jingle here.
Everybody else works with hand cues, and because we have a split operation where the talent is on one side of the glass and the engineer is on the other, normally they just throw the hand up when they're ready for the next event to happen. For Paul, we had to work out an audible signal.
And play the game.
KNBR made a few accommodations for Paul. Since he can't read the logs which tell what songs or commercials will be played, someone reads the information for him into a tape recorder.
1911, Sweet Surrender by Brett.
Paul's mother has pitched in with guidance and lots of time. She printed each music and commercial cartridge, some 4,000 of them, with Braille.
Working here at KNBR, I have the chance to work with some of the best people in the business. I get to work with music and operating electronic equipment, which I love to do very much.
I'll go on record as saying he's one of our very best engineers here at the radio station.
But even the best engineers can't write on their good name when there's work to be done.
Excuse me, Mr. TV Star.
Yes, sir, Mr. Radio Star.
Back to business here.
In San Francisco, Cheryl Jennings, Channel 7 News, tonight.
Now, Channel 7's can't read this, but in any case, let's go back and see where we are. Where are we? Well, Stebbins. What does it say there? Stebbins has had his engineer's license for 10 years, and he's been working at KNBR for 3 years.
And that's the end of that story.
And that's the end of that story.
Tonight we're going to tell you about a man setting a level of excellence in his field. His job in San Francisco requires setting levels, mostly audio levels, because he is a radio engineer. He is considered one of the best around, and that is in spite of the fact that he is not able to see what he's doing. Sandra Stricker has a story.
Meet Paul Stebbins, radio engineer. Watching Paul work, it may be easy to forget that he's blind. Paul was blinded at birth when he was given too much oxygen in his incubator.
Life is a song worth singing.
On the one hand, that did cost me my sight, but on the other hand, it kept me alive, which I'm very thankful for, and it gave me a good mind. It allowed my brain to develop, and I'm thankful for that. And so I've just taken my blessings, I've taken the positive points and worked with them, because that's all I have.
Don't blame your life on a master plan. Change it.
Paul has a reputation as one of the finest engineers in the Bay Area. He'll tell you it's because he likes his job and because he works hard at it every day. Another reason he's successful, though, is because he's not treated like somebody special.
Say you're on KNBR.
Paul's first week on the job 6 years ago was as stressful as anyone's, except that on his own time he had to memorize where everything was and label all the equipment in Braille. He had some bad moments.
I went to activate the emergency tone, and the equipment to activate the tone was removed from the rack for maintenance. No one told me about it, and I was frantically feeling for switches that weren't there.
You hold it in the palm of your hand. Use it.
But Paul didn't give up, and things quickly got better. Because he could not see hand signals, Paul helped install this cue button.
I'll see you right after the news.
When it rings in the control room, Paul's reactions are almost instantaneous.
I'm just checking the calibration now.
0496496.
Paul helped to design this voice synthesizer so he could check transmitter power. It works so well, the company now wants its sighted engineers to use it to check calibrations by telephone. Paul's boss told us what makes a good radio engineer and why Paul qualifies.
A good ear for the music that's being played, the ability to work with other people well, and Paul does all of these things very well, and but his sense of timing is just excellent. He has a good ear.
One day, ago, a disc jockey Paul had been working with for just a few weeks dedicated a song to him on the air. The jock told his audience that he'd had his doubts about working with a blind engineer, but that Paul had taught him something very important.
Only you generate the power to decide what to do with your life.
When he actually dedicated that record to me, it brought tears to my eyes, and I felt then at that point I was in.
You're a fool if you think you're helpless. You control what you do with your life.
In San Francisco, Sandra Stricker, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
Paul told us he'd like to try working in television, but his dream is to someday own his own radio station.